Welcome to the explainer. Okay, let's just dive right in. If you've ever found yourself, just staring at a massive wall of government red tape, you know that public service delivery, well, it can feel incredibly frustrating, right? Today, we're going to look at a totally fascinating structural blueprint that's literally designed to transform public service from the ground up. It's called the Sevottam Model. Think of it not just as a bunch of rules, but like an architectural master plan for engineering a vastly better public service experience for all of us. So, why exactly do public service systems fail in the first place? It's a question that hits home for pretty much anyone who has ever had to deal with a government agency or some huge bureaucracy. We usually want to blame the individual worker at the desk, or maybe complain about a lack of funding, right? But as we go through this material today, we're going to see that the real failure is almost always structural. It all comes down to how the system itself was designed, or honestly, how poorly it was designed in the past. The source material actually points out that the real answer lies right in the architecture. Previous public service delivery systems were just full of inherent defects. They weren't just having a streak of bad luck or temporary glitches. The actual foundational architecture of these older systems was completely flawed. They were built on these outdated assumptions that simply couldn't handle what modern citizens actually need. And to fix a totally defective system, you can't just patch up the cracks. You absolutely need a completely new blueprint. So, enter the Sevottam Model. This is an integrated framework. It definitely wasn't just thrown together piecemeal. It was created with one very specific overarching goal: drastically improving the country's public service delivery quality. Think of this as the ultimate architectural fix. It's designed to completely replace those defective legacy systems with something that is integrated, highly deliberate, and most importantly, actually functional. This really brilliantly illustrates the exact architecture we're talking about. Notice how the whole thing rests on that really solid foundation at the very bottom, labeled integrated approach. Then, right out of that sturdy base, you get these three massive, load-bearing pillars, shown as those upward arrows. These are the absolute core components that lift up the entire structure to hit that green bar at the top, which is the ultimate goal: actual improvement in the quality of public service delivery. Now, here is what's really interesting. This completely flips the script on what the word quality actually means in this context. In those defective legacy systems, quality was defined by the deliverer. The bureaucracy just decided for themselves if they did a good job. But the Sevottam model, it demands a massive paradigm shift. As the model highlights with that little asterisk, quality is defined entirely by the user and absolutely not by the deliverer of the services. It's putting the power in the hands of the citizen instead of the bureaucrat. It's a literal game changer. So how does this actually build? Well, to reach that overarching goal of user-defined quality, the model states that compliance will produce very specific intermediate results. Think of these as the critical checkpoints you absolutely have to hit along the way: citizen empowerment, redress satisfaction, and capacity enhancement. These are actually the three pillars we just saw. So let's deconstruct this blueprint and examine each one of these pillars to see how they really work in practice. Let's start with Pillar 1, citizen empowerment. The model says that empowering citizens basically starts with effective charter implementation. A citizen's charter isn't just some boring piece of paper. It's a vital tool that makes information on citizens' entitlements entirely public. When you actually know what you're entitled to, you become informed, and an informed citizen is an empowered citizen, fully capable of demanding much better services. This opens up a direct, real channel for citizen input into how these organizations figure out their service delivery requirements. Basically, you can't demand what you don't know you deserve, right? Moving on to Pillar 2, redress satisfaction. Now, this is a truly fascinating concept. Public grievance redress requires a super effective system. But here's the kicker. The success metric isn't necessarily about giving the citizen exactly what they originally asked for. The source notes that a really good grievance redress system leaves citizens more satisfied with how the organization actually handled the complaint, completely regardless of the final decision. It's all about the process. Being heard, being treated with basic respect, and getting a clear, transparent response is absolutely critical to making this model work, even if the final answer ends up being no. And finally, Pillar 3, capacity enhancement. So if the first two pillars act as the interface with the public, this third one is the internal engine. Labeled Excellence in Service Delivery, the blueprint lays down a very practical truth. An organization can achieve excellent performance only if it actively manages the key ingredients required for good delivery, and crucially,
constantly builds its own capacity to improve over time. You literally can't just set up a nice system and then walk away. Organizations have to continually build up their own capabilities. It's a very active, ongoing process of institutional self-improvement.
Now let's look at the operators, civil servants. Because let's face it, a blueprint is basically just a fancy drawing until the civil servants on the ground actually pick up the tools. So what exactly are they supposed to do? The source lays out 3 really energetic, action-oriented steps here. Step 1, automate the processes. We've got to get those repetitive tasks out of human hands to reduce errors and speed the whole thing up. Step 2, reengineering process, which means don't just automate a bad process, actually redesign it to make it inherently better. And then step 3, train the staff. You absolutely have to equip the human operators with the skills they need to run this newly automated, re-engineered machinery. Automate, re-engineer, train. It's a super clear roadmap for action. Which brings us to maintaining the machine. How do we make sure this shiny new machine doesn't just rust and turn into yet another broken legacy system? Maintaining it requires some pretty strict protocols. There are key focus areas for running this model over the long haul. You've got change management plus research and development, both of which are totally vital to keep the organization adapting. Then there's the whole administration of assessments, which eventually culminates in certification. But the absolute key here, the thing that holds it all together according to the source, is linking your actions to your assessment results. The assessment model is literally only effective if the results actually dictate your subsequent improvement actions. If you assess a problem, but then just ignore the data, well, the whole blueprint just falls apart. Which leaves us with this final thought. The source explicitly states that any assessment model absolutely must be updated regularly to keep up with new developments. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. As our world changes faster than ever, with brand new tech and constantly shifting citizen expectations, must this blueprint be updated continuously to truly guarantee public satisfaction? Like, can any structural model ever actually be considered finished? Or is the pursuit of public service excellence just a machine that we have to redesign every single day? Thanks so much for exploring the Sevottam blueprint with me today.